Hello, today we'll talk about foreign market entry. This is one of the crucial decisions that form a global strategy of a firm. There are four key aspects of foreign market entry: why, where, how, and when to enter a foreign market. I'll talk briefly about each of those and provide some examples too. Why enter foreign markets? It's important to approach foreign market entry decisions strategically, meaning knowing what you want to achieve in a foreign market. Are you seeking access to resources, natural or other types, perhaps strategic resources? Are you seeking a market to grow, such as GM's initial expansion in China? Or are you looking for efficient manufacturing and economies of scale, perhaps abundance of low-cost factors of production, such as labor? And finally, some of the foreign market entry decisions are driven by innovation-seeking motives, such as some foreign companies investing in aerospace industry in Russia. Thus, the why depends on strategic goals that are often driven by location-specific advantages, but perhaps also other more firm-specific strategic considerations. Now, the second aspect relates to where to enter foreign markets, in which countries, in which regions. This is also driven by location-specific advantages, but there is also a role of distance and culture. And distance could be both cultural, institutional, and perhaps also geographic, administrative. There's various measures of distance. Now, there's two schools of thought there. Looking at the role of cultural and institutional distance between countries. One of the schools of thought talks about the importance of cultural proximity, companies perhaps expanding initially in countries that are culturally similar to Swedish companies in Norway or in Denmark. On the other hand, for some industries, it will not be all about cultural similarity. Say an Australian resource company such as Rio Tinto mining titanium in Mozambique is clearly driven by something more than cultural proximity. It's nice to expand in a country that's similar to yours, but sometimes in particular, if you're driven by a need for particular types of resources, whether natural or strategic, you might go to a country that is vastly different than yours culturally or in terms of institutions. Now, one of the important aspects of foreign market entry modes is how to enter. There's two basic types of entry modes: non-equity and equity entry modes. Equity ones require capital participation, non-equity ones are more contractual. If you look at examples, so equity entry modes include wholly owned subsidiaries, where you own 100% of the foreign venture, while joint ventures are obviously including partners with particular equity stakes in the foreign venture. On the other hand, contractual agreements, which are also partnerships or alliances, are mostly written rather than agreements that involve capital investments in a particular legal entity, and non-equity entry modes also include exports. Some examples of, say, contractual agreements are licensing, franchising. Pizza Hut in Thailand, for example, expanded that way. Also co-marketing, IT work in India, and aerospace research in Russia involved R&D contracts, greenfield operations, for example, and Japanese companies in the United States. Acquisitions are also part of this equity type of entry mode. For example, Pearl River's acquisition of Rittmiller in Europe. Entry modes are quite quite important and consequential for companies' performance. Sometimes can lead to increase in stock prices. For example, Carrefour, the French company, when they announced a joint venture in Brazil, were positively surprised with a jump in their shares. On the other hand, the rival was suffering from other announcements. So often there's an expectation that the correct decision of an entry mode will lead to a positive impact on performance. Now, perhaps the last dimension is related to when to enter, and also one school of thought emphasizes being first in the market. So Volkswagen was one of the first in China as a direct investor. Some companies can create a market, such as eBay, in the online shopping space. Still, some late movers, such as GM and Toyota, in electric vehicles came after Nissan into the market and are able sometimes to benefit from some of the resolved uncertainties, and they can move faster. Apple, for example, came after BlackBerry into the smartphone market with perhaps a late mover advantage. And so these were some of the aspects for market entry. These are all covered in more depth, either in my international business and strategy and global strategy e-text on bookboom.com that you can access for free, or in the top head book entitled Global Strategy, Thriving in a World of Uncertainty, that I published, where these topics are covered in more depth. The last option for you to consider as a textbook to understand these topics is Contemporary International Business in the Asia Pacific region, with this in-depth chapter on market entry and expansion strategies that emphasizes the dynamics of entry modes. It's important to know that it's not just a one-off decision to enter the market, that you can change the entry modes, and also as stressed in this slide about the dynamics that your moves also need to be understood in a competitive context of the industry or whole country dynamics. So thank you for attention, and I hope you will be keen to explore the various entry mode decisions companies make in international business.